Our first question comes to us from Paul, Reload member Paul. It's sort of all about the mechanics of permitless carry. As we've talked about, permitless carry is now up to 29 states. Very successful policy push.
By the way, kind of a surprising turn this week on that front. That you wrote about it in the Reload, that South Carolina worked out their differences after it looked like they might not get permitless carry this year, and now we have 29 states. Right?
Yeah, not only did they finally work it out and pass it, but their governor signed it the very next day. So it was like, boom, out of nowhere, all of a sudden they're the 29th state.
We had Louisiana the week before, and now South Carolina. And as you've written for members and a member's piece, that's probably it for a while, we think. It sure looks like it, at least. There's not a lot of political space to expand this policy at this point.
Yeah, in theory, maybe North Carolina, depending on how the governor's race goes this November. If they can get a Republican, then they'll have a trifecta. But that's not a guarantee. North Carolina is pretty closely divided. So other than that, I don't see a near-term avenue for permitless carry to expand.
But this question's not about the politics, right? This is sort of a practical question we've got here.
Right. So he's basically asking for the states that already have permitless carry. How does that work in terms of, permitting? Do they still allow you to get a permit? How does that apply to reciprocity between other states? Will other states still recognize the carry rights of people from permitless carry states? So I think it's an interesting question, right? He also asks, if you visit a permitless carry state, do you get to enjoy the right to permitless carry when you're in that state? So just practical questions, like you said.
Yeah, well, the answer to most of those is yes, they still issue permits in basically all of these permitless carry states. You can still go and get a permit, and sometimes the permit will have extra benefits to it, like you don't have to go through a NICS check if you have a concealed carry permit in some states. It's considered a substitute for that process because it generally involves taking a NICS check to get the permit. So there's sort of a redundancy there that some states eliminate. But and that's exactly why, for the most part, they will continue to issue permits, as if you want to carry in another state that recognizes your home state's permit, even though the home state doesn't require you to hold a permit in order to legally conceal carry. So that's one aspect I think a lot of people aren't as familiar with. When you hear permitless carry, you think, well, they're getting rid of the permits, and how is that going to impact people if they want to carry in other states? Well, yeah, usually, almost always. I think you said, when we talked about this before, you said Vermont is the only exception to this, just because they never had a permitting system to begin with.
Yeah, and by precedent, they're not permitted to even offer permits for carry just by their state Supreme Court. So and that can create issues especially if you want to carry elsewhere. This goes back to one of the major complaints about the way we handle concealed carry permitting in the United States. One of the big complaints from gun rights advocates is that there's no national reciprocity. So states don't have to recognize each other's permits. And, that creates a lot of confusion for some people. You get people who get arrested because they think their permit is good in a neighboring state where it's not. There was Shanine Allen is sort of a famous example of this, in the Pennsylvania woman who got her concealed carry permit in Pennsylvania and then went to New Jersey, didn't realize that her permit wasn't good in New Jersey and was arrested. And she had to be pardoned by Chris Christie. This was years ago, obviously, because Chris Christie was governor at the time. But, it's things like that still happen. And in permitless carry states, you might even, if people don't understand that you can even get a permit or that you need one if you go to another state, that could cause issues, obviously. But most of them do issue a permit if you seek it out, and they'll be basically the same process as a may issue carry state, or the same process that they had before they eliminated the permit requirement. And, as far as people from other states carrying inside of permitless carry states, usually that applies to any adults who would carry there, but that's not always the case. Right.
There are some states that are permitless carry only for residents.
I think North Dakota is one of them. I'd have to double check, but I believe it's one of the Dakota. Like you said, the vast minority fall into that category. Most of them will allow anyone who meets the legal requirements to permitless carry within their borders, but
Right. Yeah. If you can legally own a handgun, you can legally carry it is generally the rule for this, but it's not always the case. And that's why people need to be cognizant of what the local laws are wherever they're at. That's your responsibility to figure out, right? Like, it may have been an innocent mistake for somebody like Shaneen Allen, but the police are not going to care if it's an innocent mistake a lot of the time. And you might still end up in prison. So that's on you to figure out what the rules are. But yeah, and it is kind of a patchwork. And even in permitless carry states, it's not always exactly the same, even though most of them are similar. So whenever you're traveling somewhere, you better make very sure that you understand how the laws work there.